सकते हैं कि मेरे को ऐसा फीचर चाहिए बिजनेस सेंटर में, राइट? तो इवेंचुअली एक टाइम के बाद जो आप कह रहे हैं वही काम रह जाएगा, विच इज इंटीग्रेशंस, और मोस्ट प्रोबेबली पार्टनर्स उसको ऑटोमेट कर लेंगे किसी तरीके से। तो और ये सिर्फ मेरी फिलॉसफी है लेकिन आगे क्या बचेगा? मतलब आगे को एग्जिस्टेंस में तो वही लोग रहेंगे ना जिनकी एप्स ऐप स्टोर में है और जो सब्सक्रिप्शंस पे अपनी एप्स बेच रहे हैं। आप एक एरिया आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं, लेट्स से इंडिया के पर्सपेक्टिव में, जो इंडिया के कस्टमर्स को हर दूसरे कस्टमर को चाहिए होता है, लेट्स से, और आप उसे बंडल करके एक ऐप बना के ऐप सोर्स में डाल देते हैं। Now that keep on going on, that doesn't stop tomorrow or day after tomorrow. They'll remain there all the time, right? Hey, great. I know you like to stay muted, but that's okay. I'll keep an eye on chat.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so yeah, great. We were chatting about what you expect as the future work that partners will be doing majorly, because most of the common customization that were requested in the NAV word are kind of part of the base Microsoft product as of today. And Rajendra was saying that we technically, majority of our work is integration at this moment.
I would say also integrations.
Yeah, and what do you think about the whole ecosystem of the apps and app source? Is that a possible future or area of growth for partners?
Should be, but then the only maybe difficulty is how to be seen in app source, and how does a customer know you're there, and the app is what they are looking for. So who is going to test it? Who is going to try? Who is going to do a gap for what they are after? So when you look now at 3,000 plus apps, find one that's suited for you. It's, I think, a huge job.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I always compare. And hello, Sandeep sir, how are you?
Good evening, everybody.
So we are just discussing, Sandeep sir, about the possible future or the expected future that we can think of for the partner ecosystem in Business Central. So great. Whenever I think about it, about the app stores, I always compare it to the mobile play stores that are available, right? There are similar kind of apps or games or other things that are available in Play Store from different parties at different prices, and they all come with their free trial. I don't think Business Central apps will ever have options to show ads because for the free apps on Play Store, ads is the major revenue, as in the stream of the revenue from where they earn. But then when I look at Microsoft App Store for Business Central, I see a lot of apps doing similar things, but priced differently based on what kind of features they add to your product. And then you can try things out for free for a while on your sandboxes. And if you feel comfortable with one of the apps that is doing majority of what you want or your business want, then you will be able to pick and choose which one makes sense. Sandeep sir, any thoughts on the partner ecosystem before we jump into today's discussion?
It won't work just like mobile. Yes, more or less the concept will remain same function, multiple options for the users. They
Yeah,
can select based upon what features they like in a particular product. But yeah, ad revenue is something which I don't think will ever exist. It should not.
makes
It's
sense.
an enterprise application,
Yeah,
and more or less, yeah, it's paid at least to the base subscriber, the base subscription of the Business Central. So that revenue stream might not come, but yes. And again, that will have huge security implication in terms of what all ads are allowed or not, you
makes
know.
sense.
So those
Yeah.
things might not work, but yes, um, ecosystem ultimately bespoke customization is going to end or will be reduced significantly.
Yeah, because when I look at the idea website, the majority of smaller customizations that partners were doing in the past, I kind of baked in into the product. And not just that, I guess the bigger customizations are also kind of being baked in by Microsoft in the base product.
Yeah. As long as Microsoft is investing, features will get improved. So that means new functionalities are going to come, and those functionalities, if they are coming on based upon partner feedback, so that means there
Yeah.
will be less dependencies on apps, additional apps.
Yeah. And that's a good time to shift to what's new in 2023 release wave 2, as Vijay is also here. And we are going to cover what we left last time. But before that, I want to talk about one very important change in Business Central 2023, which significantly improves the performance of the product. Now, this is hidden inside service and platform, and normally people don't look at uh, enhancement in service and platform, but this is a major one, and there has been always a debate about the extension model, especially around table extensions and performance. People have done their own researches, have tested it out, did load testing with table extensions in their environment, and there were various articles about it. Microsoft tried their best in the past by introducing some features, code enhancement like partial load, so that the joins reduces in SQL Server when you're trying to fetch a record. And those will still remain valid. I hope. I'll have to test that out. But this kind of changes whatever we have learned till now from a SQL perspective of Business Central. We did not cover it last week because the Dockers were not available. The images were not set, but now it's available. So we'll talk about it. Here, Microsoft is saying that till Business Central 2022, whenever a developer extends a table extension is created in your AL code, which then creates a companion table in SQL Server. So if there are 6 extensions on an environment, and let's assume all 6 of them are extending, let's say, vendor table. So in SQL, you will see one table from Microsoft, hopefully, and then 7 other companion tables. Each table for which identifies the extension from where they are coming based on the name of that table. As per Microsoft, this design was chosen to make app lifecycle, which is install, update, uninstall, non-destructive, destructive to normal users to the base table. But they also understand it, and I guess there is a huge um, understanding of it based on the telemetry signals that Microsoft is generating and reviewing from a platform perspective, that it has a huge impact on the runtime performance of system. Because Business Central, and we have talked about it in the previous PC Open discussions, maybe a year ago or so, need to join data from table extensions while reading that data from a table. As an example, for which for a table which has 7 extension, the server will have to do a 7-way join. And is there anyone who don't know about that? If yes, let me know, because I should have a slide that I can show what is what was earlier situation, because that kind of clarifies how it was earlier. So let me see if I have that slide yet. or not. Okay, so let me try showing this. Now this is from last year summit. I don't think I'm breaking any laws, but at this point, what I'm doing is I have uh, 3 table extensions to item ledger entry. And when I do a find set or a find first, this is what my SQL query look like. The top part of it is coming from the core or the Microsoft table, all the fields from there. And then there is these joins, which are created here for these companion tables. Because there are 3 companion tables, it is doing 3 joins. If there are 4, it'll do 4 joins and all. And the way that Microsoft tried to eliminate it is by introducing something called as set load field or partial loading, where you can define which fields you need in the next part of your calculation. And the and just by adding this simple line, one line of code, that these are the fields that I need, where one field is coming from the base Microsoft app and the other one is coming from an extension table or companion table, it drastically changed the SQL query that was called. Because now it is only selecting the fields that you are requesting and some other field from the original table. Plus, it is only doing 1 join rather than doing 3 joins, because it understands that the field that you are asking for is coming from which extension. And that's how they were able to kind of suggest that this is the way forward that you should be using if performance becomes a problem for you. Okay. So without wasting further time into it, let me show you what I have already. So I have it 3 extensions. The extension 1 is adding 2 fields into customer table. In the same way, the extension 2 is also adding 2 fields into the customer table. The first one is adding with the prefix SDH. The second one is adding with the prefix ABC. And then there is one more, which is adding 2 fields in the customer table, but with the prefix XYZ. Now I've already deployed these extensions. So let me open my SQL Server so that we understand what the change is. And I will not be surprised if this opens up, at least for on-prem customers, to at least do reporting from SQL if that is an issue, because sometimes that becomes an issue for some customers. Okay, so here is my BC22 database, and let me filter for customer table. So till Business Central 22, whenever you do that, as we saw in the slide earlier also, the first table, which have the GUID of the base app, is coming from Microsoft and will have all Microsoft fields. And then there will be these companion tables, which will have companion table extension fields, which you have added. One for XYZ, another table for SDH, and another table for ABC. Now this is, as of today, the status quo. And people who question why Microsoft cannot give you a way to create a key which have fields from the main table and subtable, this is the reason from SQL perspective, because they cannot create a key on this table where there is a field coming from this and this and this. It'll only create keys for the field which are part of that table. But what's going to change in future or near future now, end of this month, is when you deploy a similar kind of extension into your BC23. And let me filter this out again. Customer. But you'll notice that there are only 2 tables, even if I have deployed 3 extensions. The main table remains as it is. The GUID will remain as it is. But the companion table, which also will get a new node nomenclature has changed, and it will be called as word extension will be added to it. And it will contain all the fields from all 3 extensions that I just published into this. SDH, ABC, and XYZ. And this was done in the previous release. I'm not sure, maybe on BC 21. And I was a little bit surprised why Microsoft did it, but now it makes sense. Where in the field table, they introduced the app ID against each field. So now Microsoft, instead of creating a separate companion table for your extension, will create one single companion table for each base Microsoft or ISV table that you're trying to extend. And that table will contain all the fields coming from any extension to that table. Now, I'll not be surprised, and I haven't tested it out yet, that if I create a key in one of my extension, I should be able to use field from other extension tables, but not from the core table still. And if it is not possible, I'm pretty sure it'll be possible going forward. So now what happens when you do a get or a find set or a find first of customer table in this scenario, that will always do one single join to fetch your fields. But it does not mean that you stop using the partial load. If you're using it, you keep using it because that reduces the size of your SQL query, and it only, instead of doing a select star, it'll do the select selected fields from the main and the companion table. Some MVPs have done performance testing of it. I don't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure I can put the article link in the recording later on YouTube, where they have shown a drastic improvement in the performance while utilizing the new model of the extension that's changing. Any questions, any thoughts that we need to try? I guess I've talked about
Upgrade is going to be nightmare.
Sorry, no, it's not, because
The
the
first time,
tables that you have, the tables that you have coming from your extension already have in the field table have this GUID available. So the only part that's going to change from an upgrade perspective will only be on SQL, where Microsoft will have to drop the table and before that copy
yes,
field into one single table. And yes, it might have
consider
some bugs. Yeah,
it's
go
a
ahead, sir.
question of bugs. So bugs is fine. Bugs they will resolve. The issue is if they have got millions of records in say like item ledger entry, GL entry tables, value entry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that means their upgrade will take more time.
Um,
That means there will be more downtime, particularly on the cloud version, online version.
um,
So it will have
what
impact.
about, let's think about it. The data transfer thing is AL. It's not related to SQL. Yes, it generates a SQL query, which is pretty optimized, but it's not related to SQL. Now let's think about when Microsoft does bring people from BC14 to AL. And I like to debug things when things are happening. Or from 2009 to 2013. So what actually happened in those versions is Microsoft created a copy of your table as a temp table in SQL when the platform conversion is happening, moves or renames your table to a temp table, and then introduces a new table because in BC14 to BC15 and higher journey, they have to add this GUID. So introduces a new table, and then using SQL, it moves the data from that temp table to your new table. Now, this is something which we can't see because it's all platform which is doing it. There's no code or there's no script that's running it, right? I I don't know. Maybe it'll force people to come to BC22. That's the worst case scenario that I can think of, because
So with 14 gone and it's not no longer supported. So 14 to 21 or 22, and then yes, you will be coming to 23.
no. So the 14 goes in October, right? This year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll support 23. It'll not support 24, but 14 to 23 would be the last upgrade path. Okay.
That will be much more easier, I believe. because what you are using at present is US version, so it doesn't have localization. It's within the base app, right?
It's within the
But
base app.
for
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for
it,
India and for customers where there are already localization separate apps.
so there will
That's
be
something.
GL entry will have localization app, like country like India will have one for TDS, one for say GST, and then on top of that partners will have, and data transformation in the online version also will take a lot of time.
I
Again, that's a small problem, transitory problem, but a long run, yes, it's good feature.
yeah,
And then I
because
believe they must be storing somewhere extension wise field IDs,
yeah,
just
so
like it used to
this is
happen
it.
earlier.
This is it. The GUID that is associated on the field is actually coming from the extension.
Yeah.
So this extension GUID is 70F4A, and I'm pretty sure it's here. Yeah, 70. So instead of creating a companion table, they actually attached it to the field. And as I said earlier, I saw it in the previous version or previous to previous version where they introduce a field called app ID in the field table.
Yeah.
So that was there. So I think that part is done. Now, from the migration perspective, yes, that'll be interesting to see how Microsoft does that. And people who might get worried and say, "Oh, this might be a nightmare for on-prem." Uh, I personally would not recommend someone going from BC14 to BC23 in one jump if the database size is big, and not because of this change, but there are other changes which have a huge cost in the runtime, like in version 17 where Microsoft introduced these system IDs and other fields. They all need to populate when you go from a version where it was not there to a version where it was there. So at least in our organization, when there is a bigger database, we make sure that we go from 14 to 16, and then 16 to, let's say, 19, and then 19 to 23, because that way we are able to limit how much upgrade code will run in each of the run, rather than running all that bulk or the whole code into one single runtime. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how
Can you also
Microsoft does
say?
that.
Can you also
Yes, sir.
create a key and see? Will it be?
Let's see.
Uh, uh,
I doubt. I haven't tried it. Let's see if I create a piece. I try to create a key, and I use the word SDH. Okay, then I use the word ABC. No, it doesn't like me. Suggest me some
yeah,
field from the customer table. Oh, because that makes
yeah, I'm
sense.
saying on the SQL side, will the key also have that app ID?
Uh, that if I define a key, I guess it'll have, because it's in the field name, right? So it'll come.
Mm.
But as of today, I can't create a key in AL from a different extension. What if I take a dependency? Then can I create it?
Yeah.
Let's give it a try.
But if you create a key of that custom field only and deploy that solution, what impact will it have on the SQL
If I add a key on one of my extension,
table? Yes.
yeah, so that'll just add as a new key here on the companion table. That remains as it was in the past.
But the
So the
ID will
key,
be for that. Will it will have ext as well? Okay.
yeah, that's just the name, right? You can give any name at the end of the day, and yes, the table name will be part of the key. The only thing that I'm worried about, that can I add ABC in my, if I take a dependency of that extension. Let's give it a try so that we are sure. So if I go to app.json, copy the first four properties and get in here, and in the dependency section, try to add a dependency. Mm, all is done correctly, it seems. Okay. See. Okay, let me do a clear credential cache. I don't know which I connected last. Okay, here I am. Let's try to download the symbol. Okay, where is my launch? It's pointing to my, no, that's not it. Okay, because this I created on 22 just to mimic and see can I do it on 22. But okay, I'll take that as a homework and come back to you and see is it possible or not. Because now from a SQL perspective, all these extension fields are residing in one table. So I'm hoping that I should be able to create a key. But if not, I'll let you know next week. Let's not waste
And
time.
the uninstall will become a problem, right?
No, I did try uninstalling. So when you try uninstall, it just removes your field.
No,
If
but
I uninstall.
if there is a composite key in a dependent app.
Uh, yes. So that may be a valid reason why they will not allow to create a composite key. That makes sense. Because yeah, if that field is removed, then your key kind of gets lost. And maybe that key is not in your extension, in somebody else's extension. That makes sense. Maybe that's the reason that they might not allow it. Okay. Anything else on this one before we leave this? Just keep an eye on it. We'll have to look on the first or initial first few migrations or upgrade that happens after BC23 is announced, because this will put that impact on it. Okay. Now let's go into what we left last time, and I'll try to close these VS codes that I have and just point it out to this empty app. Okay. Let me add a configuration to my cloud sandbox, and that sandbox is called PC23 preview. Okay. Okay. So last time, and Sandeep sir, you were not here, but the question that Vijay sir have is to see what happens when we use uh, namespaces and use the same name that one of the Microsoft table already have that name. So like we were trying to create an item table, and the namespace will allow it. And we left with two questions. One, what is the implication of it on SQL Server? How that names look like? And the second is what was the other question? I guess that was the only question, Vijay bhai, right?
Yes, Saurabh.
Yeah, so let's give it a try. Okay, so I'll download the symbols here in a moment, any moment, and let's try creating a new table. Okay, and we'll call it as demo table. Okay, and we'll just have a field code. We'll call it as code, and we'll call it as text 100 20 customer content and customer content. Customer content. Okay, finish. What happened here? Did not like it. Come on, download it. PC23 preview is not found. Did I name it something else? PREVIEW. It should be there. Yeah. PC23 preview. Naming it correctly was a problem. And delete this. Okay, and delete this also. Okay, let's 23 preview sandbox.
That's your tenant
Yep.
ID.
Oh, is it mandatory now?
I don't know, but probably.
Okay.
If it's not your default email ID, then yes.
Yeah, it's not my default ID. Sure.
Pick it from the URL, right?
Oh yeah, I can pick it from here also, right? Huh. Otherwise, I have other way to kind of do it, and I'll show it to you in a while. Okay, again. Oh, okay. So we'll go to other feature and then come back in, and that way we'll know how to connect. Okay. So one of the thing is done for our consultants, because at least in my company, I hear this question quite a quite a number of times, and I have heard it in past and trained so many consultants. Then yes, in front of customer, we need some capabilities of debugging. We always don't want to come to you, bug you, because it's time consuming. You are busy, somebody else is busy. Now in this release, Microsoft made a little bit, not a little bit, pretty simple for anyone, not just consultant, to debug their scenarios from client itself. The only thing that you need prerequisitely is you need to have a VS Code installed on your machine. And as far as I know, if you don't have a language extension installed, the the feature will remind you that you need to install a language extension. So let's assume we are sitting on this page or any page. You can always head up to your help and support and go into your well-known utilized feature called inspect page and data. The amount of features they are adding on inspect page and data, I'm surprised that they just that might be the one source of truth going forward, where for everything you need to have your help and support enabled. Okay, so here's your page inspection, which is open, and if you pay attention to it, it just added one more thing here called explore page in VS Code. Now I've tried it on Docker environment. I have also tried it on SaaS, and it directly creates a VS Code project for you, defines configuration for you, and does most of the things that you need to be doing while you are doing debugging. So when you click on this page, it asks you that it would like to open a URI, would like to open VS Code. You can either use the current project if it is already open, or you can create a new project. Once you create a new project, it automatically, if and for on-prem people, if you have configured your service correctly, understands the service configuration, understand the page that you are coming from, understand that for debugging you will need to download symbols, and it does most of that automatically. So what it is doing right now, it created a launch.json, which have, we can see some configurations. It also created an app.json where it uh, uh, created a new GUID, would have given it a name, and a publisher, which most probably would be default publisher. And now, without me doing anything, it is trying to connect to that environment and download the symbols from that environment. The configuration that you're seeing are multiple. So the first one that you see is for your normal debugging scenarios, where you need to create a configuration of type attach, give your environment name and environment type. And it was smart enough to understand what session I was using. And now it gives me an option what I want to do. Do I want to do a snapshot debugging, a regular debugging, or none? So with snapshot debugging into it, and as per the Microsoft document, this feature will also be available in your production environment in SaaS. So when I say none, I can go back and see what else was there. So it was smart enough to see what from where I clicked on it and what was that session, and it automatically set some other basic properties in the first configuration. The second configuration is done for their snapshot. So if you are doing snapshot debugging, then this configuration will be used, and it have the same settings other than this one, which now says debug and profile, which means once you record your snapshot, you can see that profile file inside your VS Code to analyze the performance of it. And the third one is a pretty simple configuration, which is just used to download symbols. And that's it. In the app file, it created the basic app, file, but it also added some dependencies into it. And these dependencies are based on the page or the context from where you click it. So if you click it from customer page, which already had some pre-extensions installed, it will automatically add the dependencies to those extension and will also download symbols because they are in the dependency section. So if you have a custom app, it'll also add the dependency of that app in your app.json. And that's it. So now that's what I was telling in the past, that if my symbol download is having some problem, which we saw, I can now should be able to go back to that project which I have opened. And where is that? Yes, here it is. Let me open this one and just see if I'm missing something on my configuration, because this should be my configuration to download the symbols. Let me copy this configuration from here and maybe paste it here directly. Okay. So this should be, what is this? Oh, I forgot to and close this. So this is the configuration that I'll need to download symbols. And this, so let me do download symbol now. It downloads the symbol, and maybe I was using some wrong properties. I don't know, but oh, it still fails. Oh, maybe I used the wrong runtime. So guys, remember this. We talked about it in the last release about the AL language pack or extension. I have enabled the preview release, and last week Microsoft updated the AL language extension, and right now the pre-release version supports the 2024 release 1 platform. So keep that in mind. Don't do mistakes like me. Either don't use it or make sure that you choose the right version. Otherwise, this platform setting will kill me. So this should be 12.0 because 13.0 is for my 2024 release wave 1. I was going a little bit further in future. Okay, so let me download symbol, and either of those will do that now, I guess. Okay, it's happening. Coming back to what we were discussing, so this will help developers and consultant to easily debug scenarios where they are in. The rules of the game remain same, that your snapshot session will be only active for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever that rules are. And if you're recording, snapshot can be taken in 10-15 minutes. The rules will not change. You'll only be able to see the source code of the page from where you're coming from, or what was your context when you clicked on that button, if that page is allowed to be opened by the app owner who built it. So if you clicked it from a page from Microsoft where Microsoft doesn't allow you to see the code, it'll not open the source code. So if you are an app developer, you don't have to change anything in your app. Wherever you have given the permission to show the symbols and show the object code, they'll, the new feature will support or respect those properties. Not just this, you can be on the same area, but now going down here into the field area, and people might have missed it, you see this 3 dots here because there is a new option to explore the field in VS Code. So if you are not sure what the code is written behind the scene, and it was very hard, even for developers, to go find the symbols and then get into the code to see what was written on the on validate or on lookup of city, you can just click on it and say explore field in VS Code. This will again open your VS Code, and it understood that there is already a project which is connected to that environment. So it says, do you want to download the latest symbol? I say, no, I just downloaded it. And I'm doing nothing. Where my cursor is actually on the field of the context that I have in my client, and it directly took me to the code where from where I clicked it. Again, the rules of the game remain same. If the code of the field or the table is allowed to be seen, you'll be able to navigate to that. Otherwise, you'll not be. So how about this feature, guys? Any questions on this one before we move out back to the earlier one that we were talking about?
Will make life easy. That's all.
Okay, there is one hidden gem also here that if you don't want to get into all this mess, they have also added a context here in help and support to attach debugger to this session. So if you are not on a context and you just want to debug it, you can then it'll do the same activities as we did in the past time and ask you which kind of debugging you want to do. And if because there is no context, it will not open any object. So if you're directly doing debugging, you can come to your help and support and do a attach debugger to a session. If you want to look the object and the code on a field, then you need to go to your inspect page and data and then click the appropriate options. Okay, now let's get back to what we were trying to do, which is here. I guess now we have the symbols, yes, and we have a table. So now what we want to do is want to name this table as customer. Okay, and eventually I'll get the error, but I'll add the namespace of anything that I want to give, and that will eliminate the error that I have. Now, the question that we left last time is what will happen when I see this table on SQL? What would be the name of the table? And I'll not be surprised if the name of the table is still customer, but with the extension ID that it is coming from. Let's do a build of this app because I'm going to deploy it on my Docker. Let me open my PowerShell. Okay. And let's do a BC container. I always forget about this command. Sync app or something like that. No, sync BC container app. Okay, maybe this one. Because this should have a boolean to publish also, I guess, if I'm not wrong. No, it does not have. So let's do a publish first. Publish app, publish BC container app. Okay. The app file is here. So let me go and copy the app file path, which is copy as path. Let me go back to my this. Okay. Container name. I incorrectly named my container, and that is called. I was so far in future, I guess. 32 preview. Okay, and I need to exclude ignore. No, it's not installed, and I also need to do an install and scope skip verification. Scope is tenant and sync also, and that's it. I did the install. Yes, I did the sync, skip verification. Everything is done. Okay, so at this point, when I run this, it should get my app into my Docker environment. And let me see where my Docker environment is. Okay, here it is. So this should get published here any moment, and then we'll see what happens on SQL Server. When I created a table with the same name that existed in another app, in this case, the Microsoft app. Okay, it's synchronizing the changes, and once that happens, I'd be interested to see what happens in Exchange. It will be here while, but yeah, it's coming. It's not yet installed, but it is synchronizing. I should hit the refresh, go back. Here now. Yes, it's here. So now let's go back to our SQL server and let me try to refresh the filter because we utilize the word customer. So what was my app ID? The app ID for this was 131E30. Okay, so Vijay bhai, the table is named as customer on SQL. but just with the different keyword that I created for my extension. So it'll just be a table in your extension. From a SQL perspective, there is no overlap because each extension gets their own keyword on the, at least of the table name. Now, does that make sense, Javai?
Yeah, kind of table extension.
Yeah, in the past, table extension now becomes a table, and maybe that's the reason why they
Mhm.
redesigned the whole extension one, because now it kind of sits that way. So the beauty is that when somebody else extends this table from a separate extension by taking a dependency on your extension and utilizing your namespace, then it also creates it should also create an extension on your table like this. So yeah, life will be a little bit tough going forward because we'll have to remember at least the initial part of the base app, because if tomorrow's actually somebody creates a custom table, item table in their namespace, it'll be a little bit confusing for uh, people who still access SQL once in a while. Okay, so that was that. Let's see what else is here. Okay, so where is my PC? Here it is. Okay. Going forward, and at least for implementation people who do implementation on the sales and purchase side, there was always a relationship between posting date and the document date, that whenever you change your posting date, it'll automatically sync and update your document date. So if I go here and change it to 4/6, it should automatically go and change this to 4/6. Does not impact anyone who is coming from a previous version of Business Central, because Microsoft, as per their documentation, will take care of it. But just from the sales and purchase perspective, they have added an option. And as per the documentation, it's a legal requirement in certain countries. So you need to go into sales and receivable setup. And if the old settings, which we have seen for all these years, still make sense, then enable this, which is link doc date to posting date. For anyone who is upgrading, this setting will be by default on. Anyone who is doing a new implementation or new environment created after the BC23 is released, this setting will be disabled by default. So just keep that in mind if it starts bugging you sometime in your newer implementations going forward. The options are available in both the setups, your sales and purchase setup. Okay, now we have used this and we were so happy when this was released in the previous releases, called analyze, where in most of the list pages, until unless you are utilizing the indent property on your pages like chart of accounts and all, on all of the list pages you are able to get into analyze mode and analyze the data in that, kind of using the pivot options that you see here. Because of some request on the Microsoft Help article, Microsoft Ideas portal, Microsoft have put some restrictions and some control over on developers as well as on system administrator to control the behavior of analysis mode. Now, as a developer, you can define on your page that do you go ahead, Tanya?
Hello, good evening. I noticed one more thing while using the namespaces. So you can use two namespaces of same name also. Like I tried making two namespaces with the same name, and it didn't uh, give me an error in the same file. Yeah. So now you have BC open discussion. Now you can make
Mhm.
another file and use the namespace BC open discussion. It will let
Right.
you.
Yeah, because if I
Mhm,
create a page right now, and
mhm,
let's do that. Okay, if I create a page and instead of doing item, let me call it as customer card. Okay, let's say I'm
mhm,
trying to mimic this will be customer and card, and this will fail at this point. Oh no, it doesn't fail. So yeah, last time we were saying it was failing. So this customer card will not make sense because it is trying to look at that table from the base application at this point. Okay.
Right.
So bind any object to your namespace, you will have to utilize this so that this page understand that you are trying to refer the customer table from your namespace. So if you don't specify the namespace, it will automatically bind it to the Microsoft namespace and will say, oh, customer table don't have a field called code and don't have a field called description. So you might be doing something wrong here because customer is defined by base application because, and it says it's ambiguous because you haven't specified where this object belong to. So if you start, and this is a if at this moment, and I hope it remains if you start utilizing namespaces in your code, in your extension, you will have to. So the idea of namespace is not just to use Microsoft table names and all. Yes, that's an added advantage that at least at the table level, you will be able to use the or reuse the names which are used. But the idea is that you have these giant extensions as of today, right?
You have
These big extensions that you're creating, right? Where you are adding 300 features for that customer based on their request, they get hard to manage in future. And why I'm saying this, because that's what Microsoft is also doing. And you can see it when you get into AL Explorer. And we talked about it in the last one. So what they did, that they grouped their object based on namespaces.
right.
Okay. So now they are saying that our whole code is splitted into different folders, if you want to say that. And let me show it to you from where I'm saying this, because it's very important. These bigger extensions that were there from Microsoft or from partners like us or you were very hard to manage or change because everything was binded in one single extension. And the problem that happens with that is the performance and other things of that extension, or upgrading those extensions codes becomes harder and harder as we move forward into future. And Microsoft is a classic example of it, right? Microsoft brought everything as it is when they came from NAV to BC, and they said, yeah, we'll live with that. And then they started splitting their extensions into logical pieces. First work actually started from the system application. And I always refer this, and we have talked about it in the past also, that I like this style of Microsoft, where they have said that all our apps in the system app, at least, will be clubbed into different logical folders. So when you look at all these apps from Microsoft at this moment, this is one single app called system app, but all this code is not, you know, like we see in the base app or in our apps that we build, where people typically do a source folder and then they start adding all kind of objects that customer needs based on their need. With this model, what they are doing is it's easier to identify what the problems are. It's easier to manage or improve these code segments into future, because anything that is related to Azure functions, and somebody was naming that, I guess, Rajendra sir, you were saying that, all that code is found here. You don't have to search for 30 different objects and 33,000 objects or 6,000 objects, whatever we had in the past, and find out where your code is. On the similar lines, when the system app was shorted out, Microsoft started doing that work on the base app. And they have done quite a few amount of work there, where their first project, as I've heard in my Busu conference, after watching it on YouTube, that they are going to create another layer called Foundation. And this is their first project right now. Now they have splitted the core component, which are the Azure functions, the OAuth, into a separate app. Now the foundation will contain all the objects or all the functionalities which are common to most of the functionalities. Like number series, you use it on sales, purchase, customers, vendor, manufacturing, production, everywhere. So they put that area completely into foundation. Any object in this folder will surely have a namespace of Microsoft Foundation. And then if they are, what they are doing is they are also adding one more layer into it. But the namespace will identify that this object belongs to this particular family of Microsoft Foundation. And then inside that, there's a number series. That's just a name, right? So what they're doing, they're clubbing their random objects that we see in NAV and trying to make a logical sense. And think about it. Have you ever seen a system architecture of the nav objects ever? Can somebody design a system architecture that, okay, these 30 objects belong to sales functionality, these 40 service, 10 inventory, warehouse, and so on and so forth. This is an attempt to going that route. And your namespaces help you to achieve that, because now you are able to club them into logical forms. Does that make sense, Tanya?
Yes, yes, yes.
So when you're trying to define a functionality, so anything inside number series will always have the namespace of Microsoft Foundation number series. And that way, even if some other extension, not just Microsoft extension, creates a table with the name number series, they don't have a problem because their number series table is unique to this namespace.
This is adding a layer of security. A
Security
layer of,
plus readability of your code,
yeah,
or grouping of your code, consider it
grouping.
as a top level of it, right? Of whatever we had today.
In a
So
more synchronized and you know like a very formatted way, I can say.
yeah. So
They
you
are
said
structuring it.
Will that also impact the way extensions are? Microsoft suggests prefix or suffix that will not be required.
we talked about it, and there is an interesting take into it, and we tried it. So when you create tables, yes, you with namespaces you don't need prefixes, but when you create table extensions, you still need prefixes. So your fields will still need prefix, because fields will the field name cannot be repeated in a table, and we test that
No,
out
but
last week.
now with the extension ID going in the field name, do we require it?
Yeah, we tried it last week. It failed.
Okay.
We tried adding a posting date into sales at a table extension and it failed, or something like that. So
Okay.
from a prefix perspective, yes, on tables you don't need it if you want to go that route, and I'm pretty sure on pages and all. But as soon as you try to extend the table where you are adding new fields into it, that's where you will need the prefix, because as of today you can't add two fields with the same name. So it completely does not eliminate it, but yeah, partially. Maybe in future Microsoft figures out something. That's a completely different equation, because technically speaking, the table names were not the problem. The actual problems were the field name, because you need to be creative if the name is going beyond that characters and not. Okay, so I forgot what we were doing. Let me think about it. Oh yeah, so we were doing a page. Here it is a page. And we were talking about the analysis mode on the tables or on the pages. Now, I was not able to find out where Microsoft have disabled it, but now going forward, if you are building an app, and if you are the app source, app provider, or any kind of app that you're building, if a customer don't want it, what you can do is you can, and let me search for that property, analysis mode or something. Um, see, I forgot. Um, text obsolete. It's so many properties now. Okay. Oh, I forgot it. Let's see. Let's search for that property in the MS Docs. Again. Okay, so the property that is available is using, what is that? New feature, follow item and all. And yeah, analysis mode is now also available in queries, which was not available in the past. But now you can specify enable data analysis mode. This is done with the new UI enable, which have true or false. UI enabled? I don't think it's UI enabled, but let's see. Oh, okay. Let me this because right now these extensions that we used to use to create objects are not yet up to mark. Because, oh, it will never happen on the card page. Sorry, my mistake. I should have done list page because pages don't allow you to do that, right? So there should be a new property called analysis mode enable, which the default value is true. So all the pages, and Sandeep sir, as we were talking about, I thought the default value is false, but actually the default value is true. So if you haven't specified it in your extension, then it's true. Otherwise, you can disable it. And if you disable it, the user will not even see that button on the list pages to get into analysis mode. Now this is at the developer hand, but at the same time, Microsoft had added a new system permission, and let me see if I can see that, which administrator can control and then give data analysis mode property to select few, and this is that new permission set or new permission added. Object ID 9640 allow data analysis mode. Now what I'm doing here is I'm doing an exclude. Okay, so anybody who gets this property will not be allowed to see the analysis mode. Okay, and if someday we have to talk about permissions, let me know. There's quite a few changes that have happened in here. But so here, administrator can decide that, okay, out of 10 people that I have, 5 people can do analysis mode and 5 people cannot. And that's how they can control it. Or if you have disabled it as a developer, then administrator cannot change it. So I guess we are at our time. Go ahead, Tanya.
Analysis mode name. As in
So you haven't seen.
No, I have not.
So what it does, it converts your list to a full-fledged Excel where you can then do different pivot options, and then you can also export that data into Excel or CSV if needed.
Yeah, I have this option. As in, I have BC23. Okay.
Yeah. So till BC22, it was
Still in
available.
22.
Yeah, it's there in 22, and 23 brings a little bit control on it from a developer or from an administrator perspective. Okay.
And it does
anything
have
else?
limits of data, right?
Yeah, it has limits of, so you should always get into it with a filter on your page before you get into analyze if the data is huge. I think it was 10,000 record or something. I'll have to go back and check. But yeah, any filter that you apply here will be respected into analysis mode, and these modes are saved. So you can create multiple of them and save them, so other users can access it if you have shared them. There was a way to share it somewhere. But I guess they were by default shared. Yeah, they were shared by default. Okay, anything else for today? Otherwise, we'll meet next week.
No, thanks. It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Great session.
Tanya, I'll send you an article about analysis mode later. And
Yeah.
Gret have added the article which I was trying to mention around the impact of that new structure on performance.
Okay. And also, I've written some pointers with what do you say with the namespaces. I'll just 1 minute. I wrote them yesterday, and I was writing for my cell phone, and so for the blog, it was just a pointers. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah.
Saurabh,
Yes, sir.
in the object designer, it has only splitted tables or other objects as well.
In the AL Explorer,
Hmm.
yeah, it have splitted all the objects. So the beauty is if you go into non-AL Explorer mode, like
Hmm.
I don't know about the AL one, but when you click on base application, you don't see all the objects now. You only see objects which do not have a namespace attached as of this moment. And maybe these extensions will get up to date going forward, but like it starts with 7 because the standard text haven't got a namespace. So you are forced to use AL Explorer because now you are searching it here. And then when you look at these different folders, the anything that you see when you clicked on the base application, like I did here, is what is uncategorized as of today. These are uncategorized object. But other than that, uh, here are different objects. So like if you go to payment term, these are only pages. Let's
Only
go to
table and
numbers.
pages.
No, code units also. So everything which they were able to relate to a group, they made sure that the namespace is added. So every object per se, like enums also have a namespace. So you can use it technically on any object. It's not a problem.
So
Where are those posting code units?
You can still search in. So like you can do code unit 80 and it'll tell
this
you
is a
where the
good
namespace
question.
it is. Here is
Because I can only
Coordinate
think the performance optimization while means after watching these code units only.
so here is the code unit 80, okay, which falls under Microsoft Sales posting. Okay. When you go there, here's the namespace Microsoft Sales posting. And this
Coordinate,
is
Saurabh, coordinate 80 is still okay, but coordinate 12.
yeah, it'll be somewhere. Don't worry. They haven't removed it.
Let's be specific only because yeah, I can think there the condition is
Yeah.
like if account type is customer, vendor, GL, bank, fixed asset. So yeah, that's the
They
reason
kept it
that it
under finance. Finance general
Where
ledger.
is it more
No,
general?
I mean it is still taking only one coordinate or it has splitted this coordinate as
No,
well
no.
because
One. They haven't splitted anything at this moment. That might be something happens in future, but not right now. Let's say. So the code unit remains same. They haven't went that route where they have splitted the code unit into logical areas, but yeah, so they have fully fledged updated their code using namespaces. So just this code unit is using all these other namespaces. So there are objects, field references, or function calls which are coming from other namespaces, and that's where this line comes in, as we saw last week. I'm interested to see how Microsoft, which direction Microsoft takes, as you are saying that maybe they split code unit into different pieces, but let's see how that goes. I still have no clue about it, but let's see. Okay, anything else, anyone?
So Sora, I think Microsoft has moved all these things to as per .NET platform. Just like we're doing the coding the C hash, they are using same pattern.
Yeah, it's a little bit same. It'll take time to reach there, but yeah, doing it incrementally makes sense to me. As in, a full-blown shift will be a nightmare at this point in the product, I guess.
As we do the development in the .NET, so same pattern.
Yeah, right. Hopefully, let's see when Business Central or AL reaches to that point.
So I
Okay.
figured.
Yeah.
So I figured out some pointers for the namespace. It was that you cannot have multiple namespaces in AL project also with the same name, and that namespaces cannot have similar objects. Sorry, first is you can have multiple namespaces in a AL project, and also with the same name. So if I code unit has project namespace Tanya, so another code unit can also have a namespace Tanya. And
Yes,
then
that's the reason why there is namespace to club logical objects together.
right, and namespaces cannot have similar objects. And third is namespaces
cannot have similar object. What does that mean?
similar objects as in, and I'm extending item and again an item again. 1 minute. What did I
No,
write?
but that
Yes.
that is a kind of duplicate case now. Means you have same namespace and you creating two tables under this same namespace, and the
Right,
name of
right.
table is item. So that is a kind of duplicate now.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes.
Namespace
that was yeah.
namespace is in one
So,
namespace you can have multiple objects,
so
and
let me see my screen.
mm,
Is this okay? I'll come here on I'm on my phone. I'll come here on my Teams. This is what I observed. Let me know if my screen is visible.
It's coming, I guess. Yeah, you can see it.
So, I figured out, yeah, that first one was that you can have multiple namespaces in AL project. Like I have Saturday project here, and it's in code unit 1, and this is code unit 2. So this is possible,
This
right?
is
This
the
is
reason
this
why
is
it is there.
this
Yeah.
is possible. The second is the namespaces cannot have similar objects. That what I mean was this: if I have Saturday project here and the Saturday project again here, so I have a table extended here, item table, then I cannot extend the table in this one.
Yeah, that's just as simple as Vijay was saying that you cannot extend the same table twice in the same project.
The third was namespaces can have multiple objects. This is so we know
Yeah.
it can have, and this is something I couldn't find. This cannot be nested. I meant was that you cannot. This I was trying to say earlier. One namespace Saturday project, and the same file has the namespace. This is very vague
No,
thing. You
no,
cannot have
no.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can
So
have multiple namespace in the same AL project.
yes,
And
yes.
then both the namespace can have same objects if needed. And that's okay.
Same objects. So the second was
Object
this
names.
one. Check names.
Names. Yeah, as in you are referring to an extension, right? And if you try to create the same object in the same namespace, I think that'll be possible. I don't think that'll be a problem. Let me try that. Let me share my screen so that you guys can see it also. And I'm just trying. As in the logically that the way I understand it, I'm just assuming that that's correct. So if I have another namespace called demo namespace. Okay, so it does not support it because
Yeah.
I'm in the same object itself. So let me
Yes,
create a
yes.
new
This
file,
is
which is weird, but okay, makes sense. People at least will start using new files. Some people are
yeah.
not doing that. So, okay, so if I
Can you try
create,
making other? Can you just copy the namespace as Business Central or the first one? Same, the above one. Yeah, just copy this one to your test.
yeah, then it'll be allowed, but the number is different. Okay, now what's the
Yeah.
problem? Oh, so this is not the namespace problem. This is the AL project problem.
This is what I was saying that this cannot happen. This is it is not allowing this one. This thing.
Yeah, but yeah, let's think about it because it would not have allowed in the past without the namespace, right? Because the extent the compiler is looking for all the objects in the same folder itself. Okay. So this is a folder, which means this is a project. And that project cannot have two objects with the same name. So even if I eliminate the namespaces from here, if I remove this line and call this as SDH customer, because I cannot call it customer.
This will take up.
And then, yeah, and then if I do SDH customer, it'll fail, not because of the namespace concept, but because it is just a native VS Code issue that you have the same project where you have two objects with the same name. So it was even in the past, right? Nothing changed over there. But
And there is
that
one
fails
more.
my assumption. Yeah.
And there's one more
Okay,
thing.
go ahead.
Yeah, can we go back to the earlier namespace? The above one, 6 here. Use it and yeah, just. And in the second file, can you read in the second file test.al?
Mhm.
Test.al. The above one, name it as namespace ABCD.
Okay.
No,
ABCD.
yeah,
Okay.
something else. And in the next line, write using your BC. BC,
Okay.
your the above, yeah. What is this?
This means that in this object, and let me short it. This is not a problem. Okay. You will only add the line using if you have a reference of a object or a field or a function from a object which is from a different namespace. Let me give you an example. So if I'm creating a variable of this, okay,
Correct.
in this object, and I don't write this using, and I guess we talked about it again last week, but here. So if I create a demo and I say that's coming from record this, okay, and I save it, put out the word there. Oh, because I copied it. Now that's a problem. So if I type SDH customer, the
Okay.
compiler is smart enough to understand that it is coming from BC discussion namespace. And as soon as I hit tab, you'll see that the line is added, which means that somewhere in this object, I'm using a reference to an object which is coming from a different namespace. And I'll go back here in Microsoft example, not this one. Oh, not this one. Yeah, maybe something else. Let's go into L Explorer and pick any object like this one. Okay. So somewhere in this object, Microsoft is using a variable or a function from an object which is coming from these namespaces.
Yeah, yes.
And you just need to have one reference to it to add the word using. Now, as we saw, remember, don't copy paste because that will not, the compiler will fail there. You'll have to manually type in, or and hopefully that'll not hopefully it'll add the using there to explain, as Rajendra was saying earlier, that it's .NET where it understand what system libraries you are using. So I'm using a reference to an object which is coming from this library. So now this also gives you an idea by looking at top of your object that am I just using it, or is it just a variable defined? Because I don't think I'm using anything from BC Open Discussion. So, and as soon as I remove this, this will become a compilation error. So now I'll notice that, okay, I was using this object, which is coming from that library, but if I look at it, it is unused. So I can actually clean this up. This was a wrong reference to that object.
Sort of basically, in .NET we have a class concept, and in class also we have a partial class concept.
Yeah.
So the same Microsoft is using in Business Center. For example, customer table is a class. All the property we define, all the field we define. Now we want to extend it and want to add 2 more columns. So instead of changing the whole class, Microsoft taking as a partial class is here in the same concept in the namespace way.
Yeah. So Tanya, if in future I want to know what are my references to the bank account on this code unit, right?
Mhm.
This will take some time to compile. I just need to remove this line, and anything that does not compile at that point, I'll know that it is coming from that particular library. So it also helps you to understand what other references you are utilizing and then maintain your code. So it's not from a perspective of uh, what we call that, just by not using prefixes. It is from a cleanup, maintenance, enhancement perspective. The namespaces will help you there.
Right.
Okay, anything else?
Perfect. Thank you.
Nothing? Okay, sounds good. See you next week.
See you
And
next
Tanya,
week.
I have a note. I'll send you the details about the analysis mode and you can read about
Yes,
it.
yes.
Okay.
That will be
Okay,
better.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you
Have a
too.
good-
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Red. Thanks, Radin. Bye. Thank you, sir. Okay, so if you are still here, hope you liked our conversation. And if you have any questions, like most of the people in this meeting had questions, let me know into the comment section of this video, and I'll make sure that we talk about those questions in the next meeting. Sorry, it went a little bit extended, but that's what happens when people who think alike, like everybody in this community, sit together and start talking about the thing that they like, which is our product, Business Central. So I hope you like this. So if you did like it, the like button, share it on social media, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that. And I'll see you in the next BC Open discussion on the next weekend. Am I there on next weekend? I forgot to tell it to everyone. Let me check. I might not be available next weekend. I'll be flying next weekend. Let me check my flights and I'll let you know. Thank you and have a nice day.